Rachel Hopkins. I'm joined by solicitor Peter Lynn, estate agent Chris Hope and owner of White Rock Consulting, Lawrence Bailey. Thank you for staying with us. And Lawrence, I know that you've come in today in particular to talk about Brexit, the effect it's going to have on us here in South Wales and our perception of exactly what's going on. Is that right?
Yeah, not just Brexit, but I mean, I've been, like many others, have been following its progress through Parliament and especially yesterday's debate. And I mean, I proclaim from the outset that I'm a Remainer by default, not necessarily pro-European, but unconvinced by the arguments that we should leave or should have left. People say, you know, you must respect the result, and to me that's a little bit like respecting the majority view that the world is flat. If it was a wrong decision, then it remains a wrong decision, and democracy doesn't really change that. Having said that, I think it's now starting to filter through for more than a few people that the impact of Brexit is going to affect us increasingly on a day-to-day basis. And when you start looking at the things that impact us, and I'll just one thing at random, e-colours. The additives that are put to food and the controls, etc. And we know all about the effects that can have on health, especially on children. E-colours, the word E comes from European controls. Until our membership of Europe, it wasn't necessarily there. But we're not sure how that's going to be applied.
Well, not many people would know this, would they? So
no, and that's it. And it didn't come up in the debate, but it's come up since. And what bemuses me is that the idea that an organisation that we've belonged to for 40 years, you know, that's a substantial period of time, that somehow we can disentangle ourselves as if we were negotiating a new mobile phone contract. You know, it cannot be simplified. There are all sorts of issues. And I seriously wonder whether the government is capable of delivering this. And I'm not just talking about the Conservative government, I'm talking about any government could do it.
Can you think of anybody that you would have a little bit more faith in dealing with this situation?
Not really. I think that the referendum was an abrogation of responsibility on the part of the government of the day. I thought it was an expediency carried out by David Cameron in that the only way that he could establish himself fully and make sure that the Conservatives didn't suffer at the hands of UKIP during the elections was by offering a referendum, thinking that he would win it and that it was self-evident. And, you know, history proved him wrong.
But I think everybody was surprised to hear the result.
Except,
no, I was.
Yeah, except those who voted to leave.
You don't put the hecklers on the stage. I never understood why such a minority party of UKIP had the same standing as our Prime Minister and all the government and all the political parties who were against that decision. But UKIP could stand there on an equal platform and say, no, they're wrong. And the public were given just that binary choice. Really
to an extent, but I think, you know, you're talking about UKIP as a political force was a phenomenal growth, so much so that in the Welsh elections they were able to get 8 seats by proportional representation. You don't get that by being a minor party, you know, that's a strong representation. What is strange and inexplicable now is that, you know, a year after they virtually disappeared again, as if it's a transitory thing.
Well, yeah, isn't their cause done now? The vote's been done, vote's been taken, we are leaving Europe. That was their one policy, as I understood it. Yeah. The raison d'etre anyway for the party being there.
I think also for a lot of the public, and I appreciate that we have to have these high-level sort of conversations, the public are just saying, let me know when it's ready, because they have to get on with their life in the meantime. They can't stop work, they've got to work up, go to school, do their jobs, and eventually they're going to say, well, so tell me when I need to, what changes do I need to make?
And it's not just people who are saying that. There are some, and we were talking about this earlier, there are some very serious, high-level decisions that are actually on hold at the moment. People who, organisations and global bodies that normally would be making key decisions at the moment, and now saying, we're going to hold this back till March 2019. And in terms of trying to sustain a business and trying to achieve economic growth, you can't allow that to happen. But it is happening.
Business doesn't like instability anywhere in the economy.
Not in any way,
uncertainty.
No.
We have uncertainty about Brexit, we have uncertainty about interest rates, which trickles down to the housing market and the property market, everyone else. People need confidence. In confidence, you know this, Chris, if people are confident, they buy, and they buy and sell, and they make those big investments. At the moment, there's too much uncertainty.
Talking about property and business, Chris, I know that you've come in today. You often bring us pictures and videos of some amazing properties that we've got around Swansea. But you want to show us today that actually it's quite doable to get on the property market and have a nice
Yeah, I think I just wanted to explain that Swansea has, we're very fortunate. We are a city by the sea, but we have such a diverse range of property. And at the same time, within inside 3 miles of Swansea East compared to Swansea West, you can have a massive difference in price, so that people can not have to travel too far to find the right home in the right condition for their budget. And we've got a couple of sort of images just of properties which are available now, of very nice properties which can range from 80 to 120,000 pounds.
This property, where's this?
This is in city centre, Plas Mall actually. The condition, and I want just to show you some of the properties where it isn't always 1 point or 2 million, which can have amazing properties. The properties we've got here, which will follow on the loop. They've got some fabulous. Nice. They put some great pieces of furnishings in there. They do a lot of work to the house. They make it as best as it can be.
Oh, that's lovely.
So the intention was just to show that at the end of the day, you don't have to have a £1 million house to have a nice garden, a very good quality kitchen, a nice living rooms, bathrooms. There's so much good choice out there for the properties. This is a Morrison property, in fact. And again, from the outside, it doesn't really show the finish at the end of the day that you see a parade of terraced houses that all look very similar. It's not till you go to inside that you can realise exactly, ideal. It's great for first-time buyers who then have got a choice of properties, 90, 100,000, 110,000. And Lawrence and I were chatting about sort of the availability for finance. That is becoming a little easier, even though over the next 12, 18 months, we may have to see whether that changes its tack with the interest rate rises. But at the moment, as I said last week, even though I was wrong in the sense of when it was going to happen, the increments are going to be very, very small. I think they will manage that very carefully.
I'm a big fan of terrace houses. I like them because they've got some lovely features throughout because of when they were built. Also solid properties and quite spacious as well, considering, they look quite a small house. From the outside. But with talking about first-time buyers, can you get help with one of the terrace houses, or is it on new builds only that the government help? And is there any way of looking?
Mostly it's new build, and there isn't as much as we'd like to have here. Certain developer companies have got a far greater focus on trying to help buyers and put deals together with finance companies to put bespoke packages or mortgages in that sense together. It all boils down to your deposit, and it is still, without doubt, cheaper to actually buy a property and pay the mortgage than it is to rent a property. Yeah. But getting your deposit and getting your foot on is always going to be difficult. It has been, whether it's the 1930s, 40s, post-war, 50s, as it is today.
It's all about getting the deposit, isn't it?
It's all about the finance of mum and dad at the end of the day. That's all who will help you out.
And looking at a deposit of one of these little properties that are around 80 to 100,000, is it 5,000, 10,000?
It can be as much as you want to put down, but it's probably as little as 2.5%. Some cases they can do it for 100%. They're not particularly maybe the best financial advice that you'll be given, but generally first-time buyers have understood people who've been caught in the past, and they generally will put a full 10% down to allow for property prices changing, which they may well do over the next 3 or 4 years. But at the moment, we've just got very much stability and a small growth of 2 or 3%.
You've shown us some pictures of some lovely homes that have got a high finish to them. Is it worth buying something possibly even cheaper and then, doing the work yourself?
For me, that's the ideal way. However, there's more restrictions as far as finance is concerned. The building study surveyors will say, no, we're going to hold back 15%, 20%, 40% of the mortgage until you do these essential works.
And isn't that a difference? Is that if you went back 25 years, we'd have been talking about home improvement grants, which are available from local authorities.
Further advances and so on.
And it dried up, and it used to be the way to go, that you took on a property. And you can still do it, but of course the imposition of a VAT has made a difference. Yeah. And there is these simple things when you're talking about the availability of housing, and how do you make the terrace housing or other housing available. There's just simple, clear things that governments could do, like take away VAT from the materials needed for house restoration. You'd see a massive growth in that industry.
The Help to Buy scheme has helped. There's no doubt the Help to Buy scheme has helped. But we are very fortunate in this area. If we were in the southeast of England, owning a property would be beyond most youngsters' dreams for a very long time. We have fantastic affordable housing all over Swansea. I have no doubt that that was a Morrison address. It's indeed God's home country, and one of the finest places to live and be brought up in. And yes, there's some fantastic properties all around, and we're lucky for maybe £2,500 to £5,000 to £10,000, depending on how much you can get together.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you all for joining us. And we'll be back after a quick break, and we'll be talking to Keith Milward. See you then. Welcome back. I'm Rachel Hopkins and I'm joined by Keith Milward. Hi Keith, thank you for coming in and joining us.
Oh, a pleasure to be with you.
Lovely to see you again.
Always.
So what have we got to look forward to?
Lots going on. Well, I'm very much looking forward to going to see Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It's at the Grand now. I'm off there this afternoon.
Do you know, it's one I still haven't seen, and I love all the music.
Well, this is the week to see it because Joe McElderry is playing the part of Joseph. And this week, it's a great week to be in South Wales as long as your name is Joe. Because it's Joe McElderry in Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Joe Brown is playing in the Port Talbot Princess Royal Theatre on the 18th, so that's this Saturday, and Joe Longthorne is in Porthcawl, so it is the week for Joes in this area.
It always happens in threes.
It all happens in, Joe Longthorne is in Porthcawl on the 17th, so that's on Friday, but coming back to Joe McElderry in Joseph in the Grand Theatre, of course, they say that he is the best person who has sang this role. His singing is superb, and if you remember, not only was
quite an accolade, isn't it? Because there's a lot of great people who have already done it.
So many performers, and I'm thinking of people like Jess Conrad and Mike Holloway, but this is a beautiful production, as you can see, in the Grand Theatre. And Joe McElderry, of course, won the X Factor in 2009.
He seemed so young then. He was a few years ago, wasn't it?
But he also won something called Pop Star to Opera Star, if you remember that. He won that. So that says a lot, that his voice is so good then, you know. So that's playing in the Grand until Saturday. And in the Dylan Thomas Theatre, it's the Performance Factory with the Happy Elf. Now, this is a different Christmas show because it's written by Harry Connick Jr. Yes, it's a bit different, isn't it? But this is
that time of year now, isn't it? We're going to have all the lovely stories.
Now, isn't it? All the Happy Elf, and there's another production called Elf, which is coming up quite soon in Neath. And we'll be talking about the Nutcracker in a minute. But staying with the Dylan Thomas Theatre, the production of the Happy Elf, the Performance Factory. It's Dean Verbeck's Performance Factory. Of course, and Lindsay Richards is director and choreographer of this production. And a lot of the little ones, we've been along already to do a section for the On Show, which is going to be showing tonight on Bay TV. So we were down there for their dress rehearsal on Monday night. And I must say, they're looking really beautiful in their Christmas gear, you know. So it's only mid-November, I know, but
I know, but I love Christmas, so I'm quite happy to soak up as much Christmassy things for as long as possible.
Well, there's lots around.
Winter's quite dark and grey, isn't it? So why not have sparkles and lights for as long as we can?
As I'm driving along, looking at the shop windows and thinking, oh, that's got a Christmas tree, that's it. It's nice, it is nice, isn't it? But with the Happy Elf, it's going to Astragunlais then on the 23rd of November, and then Carmarthen Lyric Theatre on the 25th of November. And
plenty of opportunity to get along and see it.
That's great, that's great. And several classes of the Performance Factory are performing at the different venues then. And sticking with the Christmas theme, the Nutcracker is at the Furness Theatre in Llanelli. That's tomorrow night. So midnight strikes and all the toys come alive.
How beautiful.
And I know you would love this because you love your dance.
I do. And Mum and I always, every year, would go and see a ballet. I mean, my little girl's too young for us to go along now. She wouldn't sit still for us to enjoy it. So we'll have to wait a few years till she's old enough. And we can go again. But
well, at the Furness Theatre, it's the Russian National Ballet tomorrow night. And of course, it's the land of snow and all the characters come alive. All the toys, so that's beautiful. And
lovely story.
Oh yes, and beautiful stagings. It's already been in the Grand Theatre, so another production company have been there. But it's the Russian National Ballet tomorrow. Now, talking of tomorrow night, one of my favourite theatre shows is actually in many cinemas. It's the National Theatre Live. So Follies, direct from the National Theatre, is being shown around the country. It's being shown in Swansea in different cinemas. So look out for that. That's starring Imelda Staunton and Janie Dee. It's the Stephen Sondheim's show, Follies, which I've been raving about. I've been to see it twice in London already.
You know you like something if you go and see something twice, don't you? Yeah.
Yes. Now then, Tiger Bay is the big opener for South Wales this week. Tonight is the opening night.
That looks so good.
This is very exciting. And John Owen Jones, who has been a guest with us, and Noel Sullivan, who I know, he was in Black Mountain Singers with me, and we also know him from Hearsay. He's in the production with Vicky Bebb, playing the leading lady. And of course, it's about the early 1900s, and it's set in Bute Town in Tiger Bay, and the third Marquis of Bute, of course, so rich, one of the richest men in the world, and then such a divide between the rich and the poor and the miners who are working so hard. So it's about one young woman's determination to challenge the injustice in society. So I know we've been seeing some pictures, but I think there's maybe a trailer to show as well.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
Let's take a look. Oh, I don't think we've got it at the moment, but it sounds amazing.
It is going to be great. And our own Zoe George is in it as well, very much from Swansea. She's been princess in two of the last pantomimes in Swansea. So she is within the ensemble then.
Oh, lovely.
In Tiger Bay. Now, Kerry Dupree is at the Heist on Sunday night. Now, this is starting at 6 o'clock, so it's an audience with Kerry Dupree, and look at how sensational he looks there with those with his costumes. And
they do look amazing, don't they? And it takes such a long time in makeup, and you know, I'd imagine the wigs, the makeup, everything. It's quite a lot to hold up and put on. It gives them a completely different persona, doesn't it?
Of course. And what I like about Kerry is that, you know, he'll play, say, the Heist, which is in High Street, and within the next few weeks he's playing the Top Theatre in Birmingham in one of the top pantomimes this year, playing Ugly Sisters. So he will play from the Workmen's Hall right the way through to the top.
That's lovely.
theatres.
That makes it accessible to everybody, doesn't it? Because not everybody can travel and go to these larger
when
venues.
He's a scream, but you know, he sometimes gets a bit near the knuckle, but there we are.
Sure,
Yes, but just
I've never seen him, but I'd like to.
Oh, yes, so sensational. And there's some plays I want to bring to our attention. Wait Until Dark is in the New Theatre this week, and I've just heard today that there's Boeing, which is a comedy, is playing down in Wrenelston with Gower players. So that's playing from tomorrow night through to Saturday. And coming back to Petula Clark, I often talk about the... yes, it's her birthday today, 85, I believe.
It's a great
Incredible, and she's looking so wonderful because she was a child star. She's one of these few entertainers who has such a long career then, you know, and sustained that career. And because I remember her then being in The Sound of Music in the 1980s. She
still looks incredible, doesn't she?
Incredible, you know, but she is going to be featured this weekend on Bay TV, on Talking Pictures. Because they're showing Here Come the Haggits. And the Haggits were very, very popular within film back in the 1940s, I believe, 1930s, 1940s. And so happy birthday to Petula Clark, you know. But I love these entertainers, particularly of the 1960s, I think of her with Downtown, he was saying.
I think the 60s was a very sort of magical time, I think, for music and fashion. It was a time of freedom, wasn't it? So the first time that people could really sort of express themselves in perhaps a way they hadn't been allowed to, or you know, had been frowned upon previously. And I think that's shown in
the girl singers as well. When we think about Cilla Black and Lulu and saying Petula Clark, Sandy Shaw, you know, they were so special, weren't they?
They were.
Perhaps it was part of this liberation that women were able to sort of show their colours as well, wasn't it? In the 1960s.
And wear so much makeup, perform. Of course, the skirt hems went up, didn't they? And
yes,
you know,
that's right. That's
I mean, very, very tame compared to these days.
Oh my gosh,
but,
yes.
For them, you know, quite shocking. Anyway, thanks, Keith. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much, you too.
And thank you today to all our guests for joining us. And thank you to everybody at home and online for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow, so we shall see you then.